It's easy to believe that we aren't living in the future that we were promised, but we're a lot closer to it than you think. As long as you have the money, jetpacks and flying cars are only the beginning. It's the age-old conundrum. You're headed out for your long weekend at the lake or river, but you only have room in your toy carrier for one type of personal recreation vehicle. Do you want to tear up the trails in a quad, or are you looking to carve it out on the water? Don't get a bigger trailer. Plop down to $40,000 for the Gibbs Quadski, and you can go from muddy to wet in a matter of minutes without even having to get up. The Quadski follows the Amphicar before it and transforms from a high-powered quad cycle into a high-powered personal watercraft in about 5 seconds. Power comes from a BMW engine sourced from the K1300S. The engine has been modified to handle the mixed dry and wet conditions. That means that it doesn't produce the K1300S's 175 horsepower, but rather 140 horsepower for personal watercraft mode and 80 horsepower for trail riding, both of which make the craft good for 45 miles per hour on land or sea, or lake, most of the time lake. Usually, when something is two things, it's kind of bad at both. But the Quadski's hull provides good maneuverability on the water and a low center of gravity on the dry, making it more stable there too. And this isn't an aspirational product due soon. It's been on the market for a decade now. Even the Top Gear guys got their hands on one. Let's face it, it's hard to stand out at the yacht club. There's always bigger, or someone with more pools, or a better sauna that freezes you for some reason. Maybe you're the reclusive billionaire type that likes being unseen. Well, free up the $90 million for your own Phoenix 1000 submersible yacht and rock your own submarine. For all that money, you get 65 meters of sub with 5,000 square feet of living space inside, decked out to your specifications. The entire interior is pressurized to 1 atmosphere and can dive to 1,000 feet. It's capable of making a transatlantic journey at 16 knots, and if the weather starts getting rough and tossing your massive ship around, there's a stabilization system to keep things smooth. If the rough waters are too much for that, just slip under the waves and carry on smoothly. There's even an option for a smaller sub to attach to it to do even more exploring. Who wouldn't want their own sub? Apparently, billionaires. The Phoenix 1000 has been available for order since 2012, as well as 2 other companies offering underwater yachts, including the $2 billion Migaloo M7 yacht, spanning 928 feet. That price makes it the single most expensive object in the world. But so far, there's only been one taker, in 2017 for the 64-foot Ocean Submarine's NEAC L3, for a quote, very rich client. Since the invention of the supercar with the Miria, it's been a steady march of trying to jam the most go-fast technology into a street-legal package. In the 90s, the prestige number was top speed, with boutique manufacturers racing each other to 300 miles per hour. Sports car maker Lotus believes that these dyno-burning speed freaks are the past, and their $2.3 million all-electric Evija supercar is the future. While its 4 electric motors provide just shy of 2,000 horsepower, which Lotus claims to make it the most powerful car in the world, it tops out just north of 200 miles per hour. Lotus went all out on aerodynamics. The front features a massive opening, but instead of sending the air over a radiator, it sends it through a series of Venturi tunnels, letting the air not only flow around the car, but through it. Underneath, the air is also directed towards a massive diffuser, pulling the car down from below, while the active wing pushes the car down from the top. Lotus's founder, Colin Chapman's design philosophy was, simplify, then add lightness. The Evija is far from simple, but at 3,700 pounds, it comes in at one of the lightest battery electrics. The range is at 250 miles, significantly less if you spend your time stomping on it. There's good news though, because an 80% charge comes on in 12 minutes, and for an extra 6, you'll get a full charge. Only 130 Evijas will be made. Some people make their careers living in the future, impatient for the rest of the world to catch up. Before Gordon Murray penned the $3 million T50, he was making a name for himself designing race cars. So ahead of the competition, they were outlawed instead. For Formula 1 team Tyrrell, he put in an extra axle up front for a 6-wheel F1 car. Over at Brabham, he told the stewards that the massive fan he had attached to the drivetrain of the BT46 was there to pull the heat away from the engine. It was just a coincidence that it also actively sucked the air from under the car, literally vacuuming the car to the road. It only ran a single race for some complicated political reasons. But now, it's back again, though this time in a car you can actually buy. Murray's last road car design was the McLaren F1, which arguably was a starting gun for the top speed wars. Murray has taken the signature design cues from the F1 to the T50 with a 3-seat configuration with a driver in the middle. But the attention grabber is the fan jutting out the rear end of the car. Things have gotten more advanced since the Brabham F1 car. Now the fan operates on its own motor akin to the other fan car, the Trapero 2J, which used snowmobile engines to power its fans. The T50's 15-inch fan, run by a 48-volt motor, can either actively suck air from under the car or configure itself to create a virtual longtail, a name for a high-performance body design that uses an extended rear body for aerodynamic stability. Murray had planned on entering the car in the 24 Hours of Le Mans, in the new Le Mans hypercar category, but as the rules began to settle, Murray decided that it was no longer a good fit. Like the F1, power is delivered via a naturally aspirated V12 from Cosworth, good for 654 horsepower. Come on, let's face it, what most people remember from Tron is something computers, something programs, something master control, and light cycles. Oh yeah, light cycles are where it's at. Well, Neutron has you covered. Get it? Neutron? They're the creation of the Parker Brothers. That's Parker Brothers Concepts, not the board game guys. And they'll build you one for $55,000 to $75,000, depending on whether you want your light cycle to wear license plates or not. Aside from its wide stance that requires the rider to lay on top of the bike, the most striking feature is the hubless wheels. The Neutron wasn't the first to use hubless wheels, which are meant to reduce unsprung weight. They're used here obviously for striking visual effects. The design originally sourced a Suzuki engine, but later versions went electric, good for 120 miles per hour with an 80-mile range. Parker Brothers is quick to point out that this is not a bike for long hauls. The first run of 25 orders was taken in by 2017. Since then, the auction prices have ranged wildly. They haven't been able to figure out how to leave the light wall behind it though. Meet Jetson ONE, the $92,000 quadcopter that you can fly yourself. Well, if we're being specific, it's an X8 rotorcraft with twin blades on each corner that give the craft stability and speed, something you want when you're along for a ride. Perhaps in an ingenious effort to keep you focused, flight controls run through your cell phone. There are plenty of companies scrambling to make the personal multi-rotorcraft happen, but Swedish-based Jetson has beaten them all to the punch by deciding not to try and solve any problems. It has a 20-minute flying time and electronically limited speed of just over 60 miles per hour. It comes some assembly required, not to save money, but to classify it as an experimental aircraft. The pilot won't need a license, but there are heavy restrictions on where and when you can fly one, so don't expect to use it for your morning commute. Essentially, they were first to market by accepting that this was a recreational toy for rich people. Well played, Jetson, well played. Jetson says that it can lose a motor and still fly, and if still flying is no longer an option, a ballistic parachute can be deployed, provided that you've actually taken it up a few hundred feet first. Its optimum flight altitude is just about 16 feet off the ground, leaving the cage to protect you in case of error. LiDAR systems like the ones used in autonomous cars provide an assist to keep you from flying right into the ground. The formula has worked, with all of the 2022 allotments sold out and 2023 filling up. All of this could help them develop a factory-assembled model in the future. Elon Musk desperately wants to introduce you to the future of pickups, but while he was throwing weights at the windows of his Cybertruck, startup Rivian quietly became the first to market with their $80,000 Rivian R1t battery electric pickup truck. Rivian made the bold decision to make their electric pickup look like a pickup for the most part, and not a retro futurist 80s sci-fi throwback, but also gave it a striking front end with an electrical outlet facade for the lights. The Rivian puts a motor at every wheel for a combined output of 835 horsepower, good for a 0 to 60 boogie of around 3.3 seconds, making it one of the fastest pickups in existence. A full load on the battery should take you 330 miles, but that's running empty. Car and driver's tow test, dragging a trailer with a BMW on it, weighing at a total of 5,650 pounds, knocked down the range 2/3 to just over 100 miles. But don't worry, models with bigger batteries are on the way. The Rivian has proven to be a capable off-roader, and with 4 independent motors, it has a unique function. Spinning right and left wheels in opposite directions, the R1t can spin in place. R1t deliveries began earlier this year. Some companies have been quietly selling the potential car of the future for years with little to no fanfare, like Toyota and their $50,000 Mirai. What makes the unassuming little sedan $50,000 and the moniker of Futuristic is what the car runs on. While it's electric, the electricity doesn't come from batteries, but from hydrogen fuel cells. Hydrogen fuel cells create electricity by stealing electrons from hydrogen atoms that then bond with oxygen, leaving behind water, and a 401-mile range that can be fueled back up at the pump in minutes. Well, that is, if you live in California, where there's enough of a hydrogen fuel infrastructure to refuel them in the first place. Hydrogen-powered cars have been on the road for decades now, with BMW and Hyundai offering their own hydrogen-powered cars. The problem is not the cars, but rather extracting the hydrogen, which is either lengthy and expensive, or quick but still dirty. Hydrogen is also difficult to transport, meaning it's best to generate it close to where it's distributed. Hyperion has built an XP1 prototype for a 1,000-mile range supercar, powered by hydrogen as part of a plan to build the necessary hydrogen infrastructure, but to this day, that is still just an ambition. In the meantime, if you're in California and you want to pick up the Betamax of electric vehicles, you can pick up the Toyota Mirai off the lot. If your vision of the future is more on the apocalyptic side, you might be looking for something robust with serious off-roading capabilities. Something like a personal luxury tank. How, who mostly make unmanned tracked vehicles for the military, also build the Ripsaw, this $600,000 personal luxury tank. With an 800 horsepower 6.6-liter Duramax diesel at the center, the recreational tank is good for 60 miles per hour, making it the fastest tracked vehicle in the world. A 62-gallon tank keeps you in the fun for a while. A 20-inch ground clearance helps avoid hangups. The Ripsaw has gotten around since its introduction, appearing in Fate of the Furious and episodes of Top Gear. Kanye West has even been spotted playing around in one. Maybe the thing you like about tanks is not their go-anywhere track setup, but their take-anything toughness. For that, there's the $800,000 Conquest Knight XV, an armored vehicle built on top of a Ford F550. This isn't a street car dressed up for battle, but a military machine dressed down for civilian use. The military version is the Gurkha. The Canadian-fitted Conquest gets the luxury treatment, which is more pit my ride than urban warfare. The massive personal security vehicle has become a favorite for athletes, with Dwight Howard and J.R. Smith both adding one to their collections at some point. One of the promises of the future that has continued to disappoint is the lack of flying cars. The plane and the car were invented within 2 decades of each other, and almost immediately, people were thinking that they'd be two great tastes that taste great together. As early as the 1930s, there were attempts to put the two together, with the closest being the Aero car from the 40s that managed 3 examples. Now there are a half-dozen companies who have or are trying to cross that important flight-worthy threshold to become the first flying car. The latest to do that is a $2 million Klein Aeromobil. The luxury vehicle, currently a 2-seater powered by a 1.3-liter BMW engine, drives to the airport and with the push of a button unfolds its wings and sticks out its tail, and 3 minutes later it's up, and away. While it has passed important airworthiness qualifications, it is yet to pass roadworthiness tests, a hurdle that has held up other would-be first flying cars, like the Terrafugia Transition. You'll need a pilot's license and a driver's license, and you're still restricted to taking off and landing at an airport. Dolphins really do make the case for the ocean-dwelling creature that is having the most fun. For those looking to get in on all that jumping in and out of water action, $65,000 will get you the SeaBreacher, a semi-submersible recreational watercraft. Unlike other submersibles, the SeaBreacher isn't designed to explore the depths, but rather dive just below the surface, then jump back out again like a dolphin jumping the wake of a boat. It comes in shark, orca, and dolphin, with dolphin being the most maneuverable, capable of doing barrel rolls coming out of the water. Inside are 2 LCD screens that feed the snorkel camera to keep you from breaching into someone on a rowboat, and an iPod dock so you can pump danger zone while operating the fighter jet style controls. One of the chief complaints about how disappointing the future is comes from the complete lack of jetpacks. There's even a band called We Were Promised Jetpacks. That's how common that complaint is. Only, we've had jetpacks for a while. The latest one that well-qualified buyers can obtain for their private use is a $250,000 jetpack Aviation JB10. The latest evolution of their personal jetpack. The 2 jet engines will shoot you up at 1,000 feet a minute with a flight time of about 10 minutes. The biggest challenge is training the buyers on how to use the jetpack, since it wouldn't be good for the jetpack market to have someone fly into power lines. To that end, the company is setting up a kind of tethered simulator that allows pilots to make non-lethal mistakes. The problem with glamping is that your average glamper can't handle terrain rougher than a well-groomed dirt road. But your #living dream Instagram posts just aren't as cool if you can still see the skyline of a city in the distance. That's not a problem for the $6,500,000 Earthroamer. While custom outfitters turn a 6-figure Mercedes van gentrifying homelessness The Earthroamer looks to upgrade the boondocking game. If you are wondering how the Ford F-Series keeps being the best-selling vehicle in America, part of that is down to how many other vehicles are built on top of the F-Series. What goes on top is an elaborate camper powered by a 1200-watt solar setup with indoor and outdoor cooking arrangements and satellite TV. Just because you're in the middle of nowhere doesn't mean you should be missing your stories. After his split from Lisa Bonet, Aquaman actor Jason Momoa was spotted in his at a friend's place, or just parking it in their yard. Most of these futuristic vehicles are of the go big or go home variety. If they're not massive vehicles on their own, they require one to tow it to where the fun is. But if you're the kind of person that likes big things and small packages and is also looking for a thing that's also another thing, there's a relatively thrifty $21,050 Sealander. The Sealander splits its time between being a small camper trailer and a small houseboat, all in a package that can be towed by a Civic. The trailer sits 6 and sleeps 2. You can option out a kitchen and even a shower for the tiny camper. When you want to take your camping to the water, an outboard motor will shove the camper through the water at a brisk 5 miles per hour. There's a soft-top sunroof that can be opened to let that boating breeze through. It's not exactly a hashtag van life trailer, but does create options for those weekend getaways. Alright, back to limited use vehicles with a price north of the average house. There's a Supermarine MM01 electric jet ski. At $900,000, it's the most expensive jet ski ever made. But for that money, you'll get an all-electric 300 horsepower jet ski that will take you up to 75 miles per hour across the water. The problem is, there's already a Ducati-powered luxury jet ski with 320 horsepower and a top speed of 74 miles per hour for a comparatively thrifty $60,000. The Balassi Barasca is built for performance, from the racing bike engine to the hull that will allow for a sharp 3G turn. That's insane in water. It also has dual screens with all performance telemetry you would want. The MM01 hopes to go in another direction of naked opulence, as well as blinding water ski speed. The front is designed to push air around the rider, so the high speeds won't blow them off. The cargo section is lined with leather, and there's even a chilled section to hold champagne, because you can't go anywhere without a chilled bottle of champagne if you're rich enough. If you're still holding on to the dream of driving on the road and then hitting a button and leaving the ground, then motorcycle designer Ludovic Lazareth has got something that might make some members of Generation X think of Mask. For $500,000, you can order one of 5 LMV 496 Moto Volante, which translates to flying motorcycle. In motorcycle mode, the electric motorcycle with tandem wheels front and back will take you 62 miles. Just like a high-end, slightly cumbersome motorcycle. But then, hit a switch and the 4 wheels rotate up 90 degrees. And the 4 96,000 RPM JetCat turbines start putting out 529 pounds of thrust to get the bike liftoff. The hidden kerosene tank provides just enough juice to keep it afloat for about 10 minutes. In this case, a loft is just under 3.5 feet. For over a century, the bicycle has remained a relatively simple method of conveyance, with advances being restricted to materials and gearing and suspension. But the 177 cycle is the Aston Martin of bicycles. Literally, built by Factor Bikes, the $39,000 bike is a rolling performance lab. Inside the frame, a computer gathers data, not just about speed or distance, but crank force, torque, acceleration, and rate of ascent. Even leg power is subdivided by leg power and wasted power. It's finished with Aston Martin touches, like a deep paint and hand stitching, to make sure it looks right, sitting in the garage next to the Aston Martin 177 supercar. The idea of futuristic and innovative are not really things people associate with Harley Davidson. When they did want to make a more modern bike, they turned to Porsche to design the engine, and the faithful were not pleased. Perhaps that's why Harley made the late-game decision to spin off their new all-electric $30,000 LiveWire motorcycle into its own brand. This time, they teamed up with Panasonic Automotive, who has helped them create the computer-integrated system that connects to a phone app that monitors charge level, location, and even will let you know if someone bumps into the bike. The bike will also find you a charging station if you're getting on the unfortunate end of its 110-mile range. For over $200,000, the sCarabane is less a glamping trailer and more of a movable homestead. Traditional campers rely on slide-outs to give living and sleeping spaces a little bit more space. The sCarabane goes a little further. Instead, it unfolds into a 3-chamber living space on a deployed ring base. It sucks power from the environment, using a reflective dish to heat water and a pair of conventional solar panels to do the rest of the work. To make sure all of this is happening in optimum conditions, the whole thing rotates on that ring to keep the sun in the ideal spot. There's also a wind turbine to take up the slack if the sun won't cooperate. The detailed accommodations are built to spec in France by Philon Technologies. I'm still waiting for the Gadget Mobile, something that will switch from sports car to van and back again at the touch of a button. Man, that would be some intense mechanical origami.